about was becoming an issue. So we didn't burden them with long periods of time together, but tried to make special times together. We brought in specialists for them to hear from and talk with, composers whose music we've commissioned or they've sung, game nights, just ways to keep them connected and engaged. And that will probably be a part of our formula for the year coming up, as long as we're online, because community is so important in the choral programs. So
at the College of Wooster, much like Robyn's situation, we were getting ready to go on tour when we heard that we were going into quarantine. So of course there was tremendous disappointment. We knew it was the right thing to do, of course, but everyone was disappointed that we weren't able to perform. And then we knew that we wouldn't be coming back from spring break and that everyone was going to have to shift to this online platform. So what I opted to do, and this may not have worked for everyone, but I asked myself, why are the Wooster students involved in chorus? Most of my students are not music majors. We rehearse 4 days a week for 1/8 of a credit for a class that's pass-fail. So, you know, they're not in there to bolster their GPA. They're not in there because they have to be, but why are they there? And so that's what led me to my decision to really not give them additional assignments, to not create work for them. I knew that their academic schedules were so busy and everyone was adjusting to this new online platform. They were working from home, some of them caring for siblings, sharing a family computer, all things like that. So what I opted to do instead was to send them something beautiful for their day every day. So whether that was a recording of, hey, do you know this really terrific choral piece? Or do you know this choir called the Aeolians? You should check them out. And so unlike giving them listening assignments, I was just giving them the opportunity to experience something beautiful. And because I thought that's why they're in the chorus to begin with. They need that repose, they need that aesthetic experience. And so I tried to give them opportunities for that throughout the semester. Sometimes I just recorded videos for them of me talking like I would if we were in person. I connected with lots of the composers whose music we were to sing and asked them, hey, can you send a message to the Wooster Chorus? Would you record yourself? So I did try to do lots of things like that. I'm very aware that that's not sustainable for a semester or for the coming year, but it was, I think, what we needed at the time. And I think our students really appreciated the flexibility in that and the ability to just keep some glimpses of beauty in their life.
So on the public school setting, in very similar fashion to Robyn and Lisa, we were 3 days away from our World Music Concert, which is typically our favorite concert of the year. It's you know, a huge concert we do full of music from around the world in multiple languages. If you've taught middle school singers how to sing in a foreign language, you know what a task that is. And so that was incredibly disappointing for us. Even our orchestra, we found out we were going into quarantine the day of our orchestra's concert, so they didn't even get to do their concert in the full, they were on stage practicing. So this was definitely a challenging time. We had about a 3-day preparation to move everything online. One thing that has been nice in Hilliard is we've been a 1-to-1 district for 5 years. So all of our students have iPads, the teachers, we've transitioned to MacBooks. And so we have things pretty set as far as our online learning system. We use Canvas, which I know a lot of the large colleges use that. So moving things online as far as delivering content was not difficult. then the big task was, okay, what are we going to do? I went ahead, as well as several of my colleagues, and we took advantage of the Sight Reading Factory free accounts that the company offered, which was so wonderful. That actually ended up acting as our attendance for each day, because our district mandated that they had to complete some sort of entry question or things like that. So for us, that was our attendance for choir. I had grandiose ideas that I would be doing these incredible Zoom sectionals every day, and we would be putting together a gorgeous virtual choir by the end of it. And I learned very quickly that wasn't going to happen. One, I'm a mom to a 20-month-old, and there was a hilarious moment in our first sectional we did that my principal was in on, where she knocked over the piano bench, slammed into our kitchen hutch. She started screaming. Everyone's like, "Is it okay?" So that was a big fun moment for us. So those of you who are parents out there and tried to do this at home, more power to you. So our Zoom transitioned more to a mental health check. We had fun talking to each other. We did house tours. We did a show off your pet day. We did a pajama day. We did just fun things, show us your bedroom day, like show us your favorite thing, stalk your siblings. So just kind of fun stuff to just try and keep it lighthearted and happy. I'm very active on Instagram with our choir Instagram account. And so that was a great way for me to do like live things. I did a cooking class for them on Instagram, which they thought was hilarious because I'm not a great cook. But again, it just was lighthearted and something to stay fun. I tried to do some different things each week. So I would basically, one thing we got from our district that I know we talked about is kind of the oversaturation these students were experiencing. So our district asked that the electives kind of back off a little bit with some of our stuff. So basically I would give them kind of 1 to 2 bigger assignments to do each week, whether that was practicing. We did more of a social distance choir. It wasn't a full virtual choir. So we did that. We used Flipgrid a lot. We did a really fun activity called Choir Bingo that I got off of Teachers Pay Teachers. So you just tried to keep it interesting and fun. One thing I was able to do, which was really special, is we always give out yearly awards to our really outstanding students. Some of the awards are peer voted, and the others myself and my co-director choose. And so we were able to hand deliver most of those awards towards the end of May. And the parents loved it. It was a, social distance, we miss you, and just, kind of that wrap up. So that was good for my heart too, because I was definitely feeling very sad that I wasn't going to be able to say goodbye to, especially our 8th graders, as they move on to the high school program. So that's kind of what we did. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was the best, we could do with the circumstances.
So in all of your endeavors to try to keep your choirs engaged, what issues or setbacks did you encounter?
I'll pick up here because it kind of tails with what I just said about what we did. So Flipgrid was something new I introduced to my students, and I learned very quickly that I need to be more creative, open more opportunities for creativity in the classroom, because this was such a fluid assignment I gave them that I got a lot of messages when I gave it to them. They're like, do I have to do this? Is this for a grade? They were so concerned about, how they were going to be assessed. And so that was a wake-up call for me as an educator, just saying like, okay, so we don't always have to go to this ideal of perfection or whatever that is. And so that was a big wake-up call for me. And I think because I introduced a new format to them and I wasn't there to walk them through it, that was kind of a big, oh, whoa, I should have maybe dialed that back a little bit. So I'm going to be very strategic when we do go into the fall to make sure that when the time comes that we will go back online, because let's be honest, it's going to come, that we've already used those resources in the classroom so that when I do put them online, it's not going to be such a jolt to my students.
I think we're all really aware of what the limitations are in trying to sing online, you know, whether it's one person or a small ensemble, no matter what age of the person, you know, small kids through adults. But what I was really surprised to learn about was to learn about myself during this time. And I found that it was really difficult for me to be focused and for me um, to concentrate and to stay engaged. And I'm usually not like that during normal times, but that was a real surprise for me. Maybe it's because I have the luxury of, you know, wearing sweatpants all day or something like that. But that was a real challenge and a struggle. And I assume that's probably not just me who's in that situation, but, you know, maybe a lot of us, and I think our students as well, from this sort of lack of routine. So that was a surprising struggle.
Yeah,
One of-
go ahead, Robyn.
I was just going to piggyback on kids anyway, youth. One of the biggest challenges I'm having is especially the rising juniors going into the senior year, and then going into their junior year. Those older kids that are leaders are looking at, especially the rising seniors, are looking at the probability of losing a lot of their senior year, and they watch their friends lose half their senior year, and they are emotionally disengaging. So I'm having to really purposefully reach out, try to connect, whether it's through texts or social media or personal phone calls. A lot of them just don't answer the phone, and I get it. So I'm sending texts and just trying to make sure they know we're still here, that CYC has not changed who we are, and our community is still there to support them. And I'm honest with them. I still cry just about every day. I put together these virtual choirs, and I have one voice that sounds nice, and then I have two voices together and think, oh, okay, we're getting there. And then slowly 30, 40 voices are layering in. And it's not the same sound as when they are breathing together. It's not the same sound as what they get when they feed off of each other, but I'm getting little glimpses of that choir again that they can't get at home unless they sing along with a recording that we've done, which we do, and their faces light up when they sing along with their own voices. I think the biggest challenge that I am learning is that I have to be responsible for bringing them their joy this coming year. They can sing technically correctly. They can do the notes. I can teach all that, and whether it's a Zoom choir rehearsal or just bringing back, shaking out the cobwebs from this school year, I can teach that. I can bring it back, but I can't right now bring the joy into their faces and their hearts and their voices. So that's my biggest challenge personally, is how do I bring back the joy? Because I can teach them to fake it, and you can have a great virtual choir concert that way. I don't want to teach them to fake it. I want them to feel it again. And that's going to be a challenge. So I'm hoping at least hybrid is a possibility. So even if the final product is a virtual choir concert, that the process is still in groups and they get a little bit of that energy of being together again. They miss each other terribly. So that's my biggest challenge.
Amen to all that, say I. I think, in terms of the sheer technology of trying to do things like virtual choirs and even Zoom meetings and stuff like that, fraternizing in this way with septuagenarians and octogenarians and people who are scared of their iPhones, and trying to get them, they want to do it, they want to be a part of it, but it just gets so frustrating for them. And so that has been one of the great challenges. And again, just the loss of community of not being in the same place, this idea that we need to try to get away from being socially distanced and just be physically distanced and try to maintain the social connections in any way that we can. And so I echo Robyn's hopes that we'll be able to do some collective singing, out on a football field somewhere or something, so that we can sort of experience one another and breathe together again, because that is what you miss from a virtual choir. I mean, you can sit there with a click track and a metronome and all that sort of stuff and be watching somebody's hands moving on a screen. It's just not the same. So hopefully we can get back to some semblance of that. And in the meantime, yeah, we do have to sort of be the heartbeat of the group and bring them as much of the joy as we can.
So, and you all have hinted at this a little bit, do you know yet what your institutions or organizations are planning for the fall, and what is your plan, or do you have one yet?
Well, Wooster is planning to go back in person. Of course, now it's June and things could look very different in August, September. But for right now, our plan is to go back in person and to use a hybrid model wherever that's appropriate, to do some classes that are completely online, and there will be others that would likely be completely in person. For the chorus, my plan right now is we have a number of either outdoor spaces, or we have a very large indoor space that we can use with really high ceilings, seating capacity, maybe 1,400 or so. So my plan is to actually for me to be on the stage with the pianist and to have the singers out in the audience seats and really distanced. I mean, at least 12 feet from one another. Now, of course, that becomes a musical challenge but I take on that responsibility of how to keep that together. We would plan to sing in masks and probably in smaller groups than we're used to. The chorus is usually around 60 or so. So I might just bring in sectionals or, subsets of the chorus. And that we may not be able to meet every day. It may be limited, and there may have to be some hybrid activities. We don't anticipate being able to have live performance. So my thought for that is this the time that we could maybe do some really beautiful video projects that we wouldn't otherwise have the time to do? For example, in Wooster, there's an incredibly beautiful amphitheater in our local arboretum. And how great would it be to do an outdoor video there? Could we pair with local businesses that may have a huge space? For example, right down the street from our campus, there's a terrific brewery that's all wooden on the inside. Again, very high ceilings, fans. So could we pair with our local businesses to shoot videos in their location and maybe record the audio for some other things? But that's our plan as of now. Like I said, August may come and it could look very different.
In Hilliard, we are planning to go back to school full-time in August. August 20th is our start date. From a music standpoint, we, at least on the choral side of things, we're going to use the great ACDA COVID response, which I have right here printed off, highlighted. It's great. If you haven't downloaded this, please do. So thank you, Robyn, and everyone that worked on that. What I love about this is it's broken down by level. It's in 3 different situations, so full-time, hybrid, full online. I think it's going to be really valuable for us moving forward. We're also waiting for the University of Colorado study to come out. So those are going to kind of be our 2 resources to guide how we hold class starting in the fall. We're looking at breaking down our ensembles, at least in the 6th grade through 12th grade. Most of our ensembles are 40 plus singers. That's too many while our rooms are large, that's too many to social distance properly. So we're going to have to break down our ensembles into smaller groups. We have been told not to plan for any fall concerts right now, which I'll be honest, I'm really excited about. We do 4 concerts a year, plus I have a contemporary a cappella group that's consistently performing. So I feel like I'm constantly readying my singers for another performance. And I don't always feel I have the time to do the musicianship skills and the reading skills that I'd really like to do intensively with them. So I'm excited about getting into those things. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm really excited about exploring more creative ways of making music or observing different choirs. I think there's so much out there that we can expose our students to that maybe we just haven't had the time to do before if you're a heavily performing program. So I think the world is our oyster right now, and it's going to push us to be creative. And you know, that great quote, "Blessed are the flexible." This is definitely that. But I think as music teachers, that's just who we are as people. So I really, truly believe that we're going to make it work and move forward. I do think my colleagues and I have talked about maybe doing like an all Hilliard virtual choir or something like that, because we each have different skill sets when it comes to those editing processes. And I know our district would really love to see that because we have such a large school district. So those are kind of some working plans. It's hard to pull the trigger on anything until, you know, we get the official, someone asked the document. So this is the ACDA COVID-19 response committee report. Brandon, I don't know, is there a way to like post this directly into some of the chats or something?
Yeah, I have actually sent the link to Brandon, so I'm sure it'll be posted. But it's easy to find, everybody. It's on the ACDA website, and also available today sometime will be the webinar that we presented yesterday on it. It's almost 100 pages long. It was put together by 12 to 15 people in 2 weeks. We broke up into task forces and created kind of R&R specific areas. And as Kelsey said, in person, what you will encounter, what are the things you need to consider, hybrid, and then online only, and then how we deal with those. But one of the most important parts of that document is the appendices in the back. There are live links, and it's going to be a living document that we'll continue to add to. It shares what platforms you can actually sing together in right now and how you would make that happen, which are very few and probably pretty expensive. WebEx, I can tell you, is working on synchronous singing rehearsals. They're hoping to have that ready to go by fall, and that will be invaluable to all of us if we're online in the fall. There are links to incredible ideas for teaching ideas. Derek Fox has done a huge amount of work, and Hillary mentioned that earlier as well. So it's kind of a one-stop shop resource guide. I encourage you to read through the section that applies to you most, but then also read the sections that peripherally apply to what you do, because they may have new ideas and that you can adapt for yourself. The appendices are worth that document's weight in gold that she's got printed right there alone. So it's with a labor of love for all of us, and I hope it is beneficial to everybody.
And thank you, Robyn, Thank you, Robyn, for being on the writing team. And somebody just posted the link to the PDF there in the chat, so
Good,
please access it that way.
I'll also add to that really quickly. Some of our more rural areas that don't have internet access, and we're talking about accessibility for all of our kids. That in that document, a couple of the writers actually have addressed that. And so if you are in a situation where maybe not all of your kids can get online, they may not have all iPads that have been sent home, there are also ideas for you in there. So it truly is, it's not an answer for everything, but it's truly a launching pad for your creativity.
In the church world, we're proceeding, well, our church is proceeding very slowly in terms of the reopening process. We've seen the horror stories of churches that have opened too soon and some of the things that have happened. And so we are planning a very few outdoor church services toward the end of the summer. We are benefiting a little bit because we are actually renovating our sanctuary right now. And that sanctuary is not going to be accessible for public use or for our congregation until Advent at the earliest. And so there's no great rush for people to come back to the church anyway. So we're probably going to stay virtual, probably for the majority, probably up to that point. We don't anticipate, we might do a few in-person services, but it's going to be very, very limited. And singing is, it's going to be incredibly limited. Our spaces are not large enough to socially distance in a way that is safe, especially for older singers. And so we are going to proceed with extreme caution. And again, we're going to employ all the virtual offerings that are out there. There are, you've talked about WebEx. I've started flirting a little bit with some of the jamming platforms that are out there, which are interesting because they're audio only, but I know friends who are in string quartets who've been able to rehearse. The latency is lower, and so I've started playing with that a little bit to see if that's something that's usable either for my college or for the church. We're going to proceed with extraordinary caution, at least for the next 6 months.
So just for the benefit of everybody listening, we've talked about several technological resources that help with rehearsals. Can we say those again and maybe just to explain what they are a little bit? Anybody who's used them?
I think the ones we've mentioned that I can think of are Flipgrid, and a lot of us have used those. Flipgrid can be a great way to capture small parts of your music, easy for the students to access or the singers to access, and you can communicate with them in writing or a video response, which I like because if you're talking about a vowel formation in a phrase, then it's better to demonstrate it. WebEx I have not used. I've used that some at CCM, but not through CYC. But they're kind of on the cutting edge of coming out with synchronous singing. So hopefully that will be an option for us. Of course, Zoom, that's become a term in our vocabulary now, so it's interesting. What are some other things we mentioned? I again can point to the ACDA document because it's got, I think, 6 or 7 pages of that kind of stuff in it.
Yeah, that's the best resource that
Truly.
I've seen. It's really comprehensive with those sorts of resources. So that's really wonderful.
If you do want to venture into some sort of virtual choir or social distance choir, quartets, things like that, GarageBand is a fairly user-friendly program to use. It is a Mac program. I don't think it's offered on PC. So the nice thing about GarageBand is my students have it on their iPads. So that's going into next year. That's definitely going to be something we use as a group. And one thing I did realize when we did our social distance choir, I didn't make a video track of myself conducting. All we made was a click track, and we have some work to do with working with microphones. I was in editing purgatory for several days. So that was interesting.
However, that presents a new challenge too, because if we use a video of ourselves conducting, which I did as well, then the singers need 2 different platforms, 2 different devices. They have to have one to watch and one to video record.
Yep.
So not everybody's going to be able to do that. Right. So just be warned that yes, it's necessary, but it may not be possible for everybody.
Correct.
Since we're talking about virtual choirs, we had a couple people ask about what platforms or apps might be best for creating virtual choirs. And then somebody also asked about how do you handle copyright with virtual choirs?
I'll talk a little bit about the copyright stuff first. When we first started this, we didn't know what we were doing. And so quite frankly, we were breaking copyright laws probably left and right. And I think a lot of people were granting people grace because we're all trying to make music together and we want to share it, and composers want their music performed, and this is the way to do it. But we did discover that one license has a streaming license that covers probably 98% of the music that we deal in. And so I think that I mean, we acquired that license immediately once we discovered that it was there and that it was necessary. But the biggest thing to know is that licenses like that really are necessary. You can reach out to the composer for permission. You can reach out to the publisher for permission to. Again, they're being very generous. The most important thing probably is to communicate and not to assume that what you're doing is okay, because it may not be. At the very beginning, when we did our very first virtual choir, it was a piece that I wrote. I was writing a piece in honor of our outgoing music director, and it set a text that was copyrighted by Hope Publishing, Dan Damon, Woman Weeping in the Garden. It was for Easter. And so I wrote Hope Publishing and I wrote Dan and I said, can I do this? And they said, sure. And I paid a nominal fee and it was fine. So just do your due diligence and do your research and know that it's necessary to do that. It's important. Composers deserve to receive rights and remuneration for their work. In terms of platforms, we have found that in order for people to upload videos to us, we found Google Drive to be the simplest way to, it's just an easy platform. There's an uploader app that I just discovered on Google Drive that makes it real simple for people to just, they go to a website, they hit a button and it uploads very simply to your Google Drive. And then we've gotten pretty good with the video and the audio. I actually use Logic for the audio and I use Adobe Premiere Pro for the video. So we've gotten pretty elaborate with it, and we've gotten frightfully good at it in a way that I'd never intended or expected.
We use Adobe Premiere Pro for both, and we're going to be branching out because I need to get to know the other ones. So that's just all part of the technology challenge. But yeah, Logic and Adobe Premiere Pro, they're big ones. As far as copyright, there was a great webinar that you can, if you're not connected to Choramor, CHORAMOR. They have a website and a Facebook page, and it's just a group of conductors. It's just people like us that are gathering together and sharing ideas. And on the email that just came out from them yesterday, there's a link to a webinar that Matthew Workman from National Concerts hosted, all about copyright issues. So I suggest that you dig into that. I think it's going to be a great resource for us to try to learn and educate ourselves. The webinars I've been on with publishers have all said exactly what Britt said. Contact us because we want to work with you. We know everybody is struggling. They don't want to be a barrier, but they want to help. So reach out.
From a distributing the music standpoint, we put all of our music on our Canvas page, and obviously that requires some scanning and things like that. And when we first started doing this in Hilliard, we researched and we were told that as long as we are continuing to purchase full copies of the music and have them in our library, that using that for educational purposes, obviously for the students, their work from the school year gets automatically deleted, so they're not holding on to that music. It's not something that we're posting for wide use online. It's very contained within the school district, because that's one thing I think we're gonna have to look at. If you have a smaller program where you have to share music or things like that, that's not going to be safe. And so that's something that you'll need to think about preparing for in a public school setting, is making sure you have enough copies, that you're following licensing rules, but then also having an outlet to not share music.
We did one virtual choir project in the spring, and I will say I was a bit torn on the general concept of it, but our president asked us to do it, and she's so supportive of the music program that I said, sure, we'll make a go of that. But one of the very best things that our administration did is they realized that our IT team didn't have the expertise to do this, and they didn't expect me to just figure it out overnight. So very thankfully, they said, we will pay someone to do this. Do you know anyone who can do it? And we'll pay them. So if anybody wants that information, I'm happy to share that with you and share the details. Just contact me directly, and I'm happy to share the person who did ours. And he's somebody that I would absolutely go to again. But I was really glad that our administration realized that, this is a big undertaking. It just doesn't happen. And we're not just singing live on Zoom.
Somebody asked about latency, experiencing latency in putting together virtual choirs. If any of you want to talk about that.
I don't know of any challenges with latency with putting it together, because they're all submitting their tracks with what you've provided to them. If you guys have something else, that's new to me.
Yeah, virtual choirs are an asynchronous experience, meaning that they're not happening. You're not all, everybody's recording their music or their track, so to speak, individually at their own time, and then they're submitting it to you. A virtual choir rehearsal or a remote choir rehearsal is where you deal with latency issues. And that's why using something like Zoom just doesn't work, because, it takes time for your internet signal to go to its hub and bounce back to you, and for that to happen on your end and their end. And the total latency is the time it takes for your signal to get from point A to point B. And it's, usually 0.2 of a second, something like that, for people with an average internet connection, which is great, but it just doesn't work for live rehearsal, which is why we're hoping that some of these new platforms that use things like the jamming softwares I was talking about, the one that I know of is called Jamulus. It's actually meant for professional, like pop musicians who want to jam together guitar, bass, drum, and it's purely audio, which cuts down on the latency because the signal just moves faster. But those are the issues you have relative to latency and all the technology we're dealing with. You shouldn't have latency issues when you're building a virtual choir. That's sort of a different animal.
If I can interject, I actually have, when I was getting recordings from some of my students, and at first I thought it was, user error, but it was some of my best students, and it was consistent. I would ask them to send me a second recording, and it would be the same way. And I was told, and I don't know the factuality of this, that sometimes it could have something to do with somebody's internet connection or the type of microphone you were using. I don't know if you heard anything about that.
It is actually possible that latency can be created in the recording process if your computer isn't fast enough to run the software you're using. So that can happen. And it also happens if you're trying to put together one of these virtual choirs. I have a MacBook Pro that I'm looking at right now. This MacBook Pro is 6 years old. It can do the audio software that I need, but it can't do the video software. It's not fast enough. The processor isn't fast enough. And so you can run into issues, I suppose, relative to that.
One thing that we found in our virtual project, we started with a conductor track, and I recorded in the same room as our pianist. So she and I were together, and then we made a split screen so that I was on half of the screen, and then the music was the sheet music was scrolling on the other half. But like Robyn said, the students then had to have 2 devices. And because of that, we asked them to use wired headphones rather than, Bluetooth or the earbuds, the wireless earbuds. And we found that using the wired helped a little bit with those types of latencies if you've got a couple of tracks that you're dealing with.
Going along with what Lisa said, we discovered the wired headphones are really key. Beats headphones are horrible to record with. You get tons of feedback and overfeed with the frequency. So so definitely the wired headphones are key if you choose to go that way. And that could be an access issue thing like Robyn mentioned. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Great. I'm going to pivot, to use the word, to some of our questions that our attendees have asked. The first one, do you have any thoughts or advice for new teachers or those transitioning into new positions concerning creating community and environment with our ensembles during a time when face-to-face instruction may be limited? So new teachers.
Yeah, I'm glad you pulled that question out because I wanted to go back to that one. It's really about us trying to replicate what we have in our choral rehearsals. How do we build that community? It can't happen as easily, so it's got to happen through interactions, but very purposefully done by teachers. And the most important thing you can do to kick off your year, normally I say I walk into a classroom and the first thing I do is have them sing, because what I do first establishes what the rest of the year will be. Having them sing at home is not what you want them to establish the rest of the year to be. So if it's a virtual to start, the very first thing to do is build community so they have some trust in you, trust in each other, and desire to interact. And just create what you create in the classroom through a Zoom or whatever platform you're using. That's going to be really important.
I think for new teachers, nobody goes into teaching with everything all figured out. So don't be afraid to reach out, find a mentor. I think Hilliard gave such great advice this morning, but seek mentors, seek other people who have tried some of these and might have some possible solutions for you, but don't feel like you have to know everything going in. There are lots of people who can help you.
I would encourage, if you're a new teacher or an undergraduate student moving into the interview process, be prepared to answer questions on how you would deal with an online format. Because I know I have 2 colleagues that have been interviewing for positions, and they asked those candidates to present online lessons. So have at least 1 or 2 in your back pocket ready to go, research some of these platforms we've talked about so that you can show that you have a knowledge. I think you're at an advantage because you've grown up with all of this technology more so than maybe some of us that have been in this for a while and are trying to discover new things. So, just go in prepared to answer those questions, because I think this is probably going to be here for the long term, even if we're not in a full online setting. I know in Hilliard, they're very, very adamant about blended learning type lessons, and it's not just for core subjects. They want to see it in the arts too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that anybody who's going into this world, in the collegiate world that Lisa and I live in, we've all gone into online learning kicking and screaming. We've all just sort of said, this is not what our students came for. This is not what we really signed up for when we got into this business 180 years ago. But it's the reality now. It simply is. And so you need to embrace the possibilities, the technologies, figure out what the positives are from it, and augment those and use them to your best ability, because it's going to be a part of the way we do our work from now on.
We have several questions popping up in the chat about students or singers in general who experience anxiety doing any kind of singing on their own for recordings or virtual choirs. Can any of you speak to ideas on how to manage that?
Start small. Man, my middle schoolers love TikTok. I hate TikTok. And it's awful. But anyways, but actually Flipgrid was really great for us to dip our toes into that, because I could adjust the settings that only I would see the recording, so they didn't have to worry about peer judgment. And so I think, for me, I'm definitely going to start smaller with that. So then when it comes time that we either do bigger videos or quartets or something like that, they've already got that fear. And I kind of called them on it, and not in a negative way, but I just said, I'm confused because you'll make a TikTok video of yourself dancing for 30 seconds, but you won't sing. And they're like, well, I'm like, no, it's not that different. So if you can compare it to stuff they are already doing, I think that helps them. I think we're going to do kind of a hybrid, not using the TikTok app, but like a TikTok choir, you know, whether there's an incredible community on Instagram, if you're an Instagram people, called @choirbaton. And a lot of the directors on there have done TikTok videos of like solfege hand signs or teaching how to sing in harmony through that. It's, as much as I hated the platform, I went kicking and screaming, as Britt said, into it, because I'm like, actually, this is going to be something I can use to connect with students.
I found that a lot of our students were experiencing anxiety because they didn't have a private location to sing. You know, maybe they share a bedroom or something like that. So I'm not sure I have the answer in how to, you know, how to fix that, but just knowing that that's a reality for a number of our students, and not everyone is confident enough to just, you know, sing in the kitchen or something like that. So I think awareness of that is essential for all of us.
I've actually found, go ahead.
I was just, for working with youth, so I'll piggyback on that just real quickly. It's important also to instruct your parents, educate your parents what the youth need. They need that private space to be able to create sound, because if they're doing it, as you said, with no privacy, the sopranos aren't lifting their high notes. It's just awkward. So educating our parents is important. Sorry, go ahead, Britt.
That's okay. What was I going to say? I don't know. It was going to be good too.
So, I'm sure it was.
Oh, I know. I've actually found it's absolutely true that we've had some people, and some of my adults in the church choir have definitely said, "Oh my God, this was the most humbling experience of my life. To hear myself sing by myself was wow." It was just, you know, mortifying for them on a level or something. But I also found, both with my college choir and my church choir, that some people who had not sung out more before were actually feeling more emboldened to sing by themselves. So there are instances of the reciprocal occurring, just like, you know, you have students who will not talk in an in-person class, but will go crazy in a chat room and an online platform. You will also have a handful of students who will actually benefit and will actually discover more of their voice by singing by themselves.
A couple more questions from our attendees. How do you get to know new singers to your program if we are virtual?
Honestly, I don't know. That's terrible to say. That is a great question that I have not pondered yet. I guess I've been in the mindset of like, we're still at least going to be back for the first week. So thank you for asking that question, because that is going to have to be something to explore for sure.
Yeah, I think it's kind of what I was saying earlier about the building community. It's using social activities in a Zoom setting where they can actually get to know each other, talk, laugh, finding avenues to actually be able to laugh together is really important. And it's creating that safe space, that safe environment, so that they can begin to sing and be heard by you and by others, creating the trust. So, and that's going to be through social, emotional learning activities, and really not necessarily musical activities for the first. I've heard some teachers say they're not going to do anything musical for a month. I don't know if I'm going to go, I don't have time to go that long, but I would, you know, it's going to be a part of every rehearsal will be the social interactions as well as the creating of sound.
Looks like there's some great suggestions coming through on the.
Yes, I saw those too.
Yeah, thank you to those of you who are chiming in. The last question that I see that we haven't really gotten to yet, unless somebody, feel free, folks, at this time to put in your last questions. If you do assessment, if you work in a school setting, how do you assess students in this format?
With great fear and trembling. It's a challenge. It definitely is. I think assessment has to be. I mean, I'm not putting on my church choir hat anymore. I'm thinking more as a college choir director. I think there has to be a certain level of grace involved in the process, because you're recognizing the extent to which the kids are going out on a limb to exist in a choir in this world anyway. And so I think you have to be cognizant of that as you are, if you have a traditional assessment process that you go through. There are some wonderful, I mean, some of the platforms that are out there, some of the ones that are now sponsored by ACDA, I have assessment portals within them, and some of those have a lot of value. And so there are great ways to do it. I think the important thing is to do it with a lot of intentionality of accepting how difficult this actually is for everybody.
I'm sorry to hijack one last question that I missed, and because we're almost out of time, but the question is, Lisa, you mentioned wearing masks during rehearsals and concerts. Will this be mandated? What will you do if somebody refuses to wear a mask, or can anybody else speak to wearing masks in rehearsal?
Campus-wide, we're expecting everyone to wear a mask. So that would be faculty, staff, students, everyone. I don't anticipate that there will be anyone in the chorus that will not wear a mask, but I think for others on campus, if they refuse, I think that they would go through our disciplinary system just as if they were breaking another rule. But I think that the college is making a strong effort to say, this is what we need to do to come together in person and to keep our community healthy. It's going to be one of a number of rules. You know, how will the students go to the dining hall? How will they go from class to class? So it's going to be one of a number of policies. But my thought is, if somebody's not willing to do that in chorus, I'm not willing to have them in the chorus.
I think I'm sorry, Robyn, go away.
I was just going to say, for use at UC right now, it is mandated as well to wear masks on campus. So there won't be a choice for what we do on campus. I know our public schools, and Kelsey can probably talk to this better than I, but our public schools are not right now mandating that for fall. We'll see that all could change too. But that it's a comfort zone for kids and families and whatnot. So that will be an interesting challenge when we get there. Go ahead, Kelsey, sorry.
No, you're fine. Kind of what basically was going to follow that, as far as we know right now, we're not going to be mandated, but I think we're going, at least in the choir rooms, there is going to be a bit of a asterisk with that, just because of, especially we probably hear what this University of Colorado study says. So if you're going to be in choir, when you're in the choir room rehearsing, masks are going to be mandatory.
I will say something to check out. Oh, I'm sorry, Britt.
No, go ahead.
I don't know if you've seen this already, but I saw that their Under Armour, the brand that makes athletic wear, they're making masks that are designed for running. And so I ordered one of those. I think it's not coming until August, but I'm curious to see what that will be like for singing. Because if anybody's tried to sing in a mask, of course, there are a number of difficulties that go along with that. So I'm going to check out this Under Armour mask and see if it might be, I'm planning to use it for conducting.
There is a company, and I should know because they were advertisers at Chorus America conference last week, and I apologize if anybody affiliated is here and I'm not remembering that correctly. I think it was the Black Folder Company. They are developing masks for singing that are puffed out so that we're not breathing it in right there. It's a space kind of in front of you. I will look that up, Brandon, and I will get that to you so it can be posted correctly. So
great, thank you. Well, we could probably talk about this for many more hours, and I'm hoping that perhaps these conversations can continue for our attendees in our roundtable discussions today. But I want to have everybody thank Kelsey, Burkett, Britt Cooper, Robyn, Lana, and Lisa Wong so much for all of these helpful resources and insights and for being here today. We're really appreciative of your taking your time to help us out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
We are now going to move into our second concert session. As in our first session from this morning, this concert session features a variety of choirs from all over Ohio, including both virtual choir projects and concert performances from the past year. And again, a full program is found on the last page of your information sheet. This session will feature performances by the Xavier University Women's Chorus, College First Church of God Worship Choir, the Singing Buckeyes, Hilliard Darby Women's Chorus and Chamber Orchestra, Kent State University Gospel Choir, the Bay High School Choraleers, Cleveland Pops Chorus, the Collegians Choral and alumni from Mount Vernon Nazarene University, and the Van Gordon Voices from Van Gordon Elementary School. So as soon as I get us going here, we will watch our second concert session.